Good evening and welcome to this week's weekly Wednesday workshop. I'm the player formerly known as Mr. Shadow. I say formerly because now I'm named Mr. Milton.
And this is Mr. Burndeck sitting in. I'm the one that named him Mr. Milton.
You jerk.
Moving on.
Anyway, so this week's workshop is all about deck building. I'm going to take you through the basics. Mr. Burndeck will take over for basic strategies. I'm going to take over again for monocurve, color and allied colors. And then Mr. Burndeck will finish it off with enemy colors. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the basics with Magic deck building is fairly simple. The main deck is a minimum of 60 cards. You can't have any less. You can have more if you want to, but sticking to 60 is best for, the deck's consistency. And for those of you who plan on playing in official tournaments or, DDR tournaments, we have a rule of having a sideboard. Your sideboard can be anywhere between 0 and 15 cards, and realistically, the cards in your sideboard should support your main deck or offer answers to decks you'll be facing. Now, you can only run 4 copies of any card in your deck, except for basic lands. Basic lands you can run however many of them you want. Everything else you're limited to a maximum of 4. On that note, for the cards you're going to run in your deck, you generally do want to run them in playsets of 4. That way you guarantee consistency, and at least that way, you're not going to have a problem finding a very specific card. If you want to run less than 4 of a card, do so only if it's not essential to the main strategy. Pretty much only if it supports the main strategy in a very minor way, or if it's tech for the deck. Now make sure you're running enough land. Many beginning players do have trouble with that. Most decks can run off 20 to 24 lands, but it really does depend on your monocurve and your color ratios, which I'll get to later.
And the amount of cards in the deck, of course.
That too. So now Mr. Bundeck's going to take over for basic strategies.
That's right. So basically you need to have an idea of what you want your deck to be able to do. Some basic strategies include milling, so forcing cards from your opponent's library or deck into their graveyard before it's drawn. Beatdown, so winning by combat damage, which is very straightforward. Life manipulation, so indirect damage, particularly things like extort, which harm your opponent without causing any sort of combat damage or creature damage. Combo decks, wherein you need specific cards to pull off a combo which will allow you to win in a very short period of time. But keep in mind they are very complex, so if it's your first time building a deck, I really would not recommend going for a combo deck. Tribal, so wherein you run spells and creatures that are all from the same tribe. Often it will say tribal on the deck subtype. We've also got burn deck, which is a primarily red thing, mostly burning your opponent's life away using things like lightning bolt, arc trail, things that just damage creatures or opponents directly, once again without using any sort of combo. It is kind of like life manipulation, only you don't have the potential to gain life so much as just hurt your opponent.
Can I just butt in on that one?
Yeah, sure.
The main difference between life manipulation and burn is that life manipulation is generally caused by life loss. Burn is indirect damage, not combat based generally. Anyway.
Yeah. We've also got control, wherein your opponent or you can slow down their opposing player in order to just bring it to the point where they can win quickly, efficiently, and easily without needing to really get around your abilities and your spells. A lot of these types can be creatureless, but there are a very limited number of deck types that can run creatureless, so you might want to be a bit careful if you intend on making a creatureless deck. burn decks and control decks usually go very well with creatureless and maximize your ability to cast control spells or burn spells. Anyways, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Milton to talk to you about the mana curve.
Okay, now your mana curve is basically a curve based off the number of cards you've got in a certain converted mana cost. I've printed off the stats from one of my decks. It happens to be my mill deck.
Hence Mr. Milton.
Silence you. So as you can see, my mana curve is actually a curve. That's very important. You want your curve to be an actual bell curve. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just a curve. You don't want a mana curve that's just or you don't want that. You want it to be a curve. You want it to peak at a certain point. Generally, when you want it to peak is between your 2 and your 4 drops. You generally want to avoid running too many 5 drops or higher. The only situation where I recommend that's right to do is if you're running green and you can excel mana like there's no tomorrow.
I'm just going to butt in there. There are other colours that can excel mana ridiculously, like black has cards like Dark Ritual, and things like the Phyrexian Altar also help no matter what the colour. So you don't need to be running green, but green is the easiest to excel.
Yes, and a very, very big part of your mana curve is you want to be able to make sure that you're capable of playing at least 1 card per turn. Lands excluded, because, lands don't really count. Now, the card mana symbols, that's more for your mana ratio, so you can set up your land base. So in this deck I've got 39 black symbols and 29 blue symbols. Ignore the red one, it's not important. It's not in this deck, it's blue-black, but so the ratio for this deck is 29 to 39. Now the easiest way to figure out your mana ratio is to just set aside all the cards you'll be using and count the number of mana symbols. So Mesmeric Orb, no colored mana, it contributes to your mana curve, but not your ratio, so we'll take that out of the picture. Temporal Extortion has 4 black mana symbols, so that's very important. Duskmantle Guildmage has 1 black and 1 blue. So right now your ratio is 5 to 1. When you count in Jace Memory Adept, you get 2 more blue mana symbols, giving you a ratio of 5 to 3. So what that means is for every 3 islands you've got in the deck, you want to have at least 5 swamps to balance out your mana base, to make sure that you get enough swamps to play that, enough swamps and islands to play that, and at the same time enough islands to play that. So that's basically what you want to have for your mana ratio and your mana curve. Now I'm going to talk to you about your color combos. So we're going back to the color wheel. Color wheel is very important. Now, in Magic, for your 2 color combos, you've got what are called ally colors and enemy colors. The difference is that your ally colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, and your enemy colors are opposite each other on the color wheel. So, for your ally colors, you've got white-blue, Azorius, blue-black, Dimir, black-red, Rakdos, red-green, Gruul, green-white, Selesnya. For your enemy colors, you've got white-black, Orzhov, blue-red, Izzet, black-green, Golgari, red-white, Boros, and green-blue, Simic. Now, there are 3 color combos that you can use, and they are called shards and wedges. As for 4 color combos, no one really uses them. You generally want to stick to 3 colors as a maximum, but there are decks out there that use all 5 colors. Those kinds of decks are called conflux. But that's a bit complex, and it's generally easier to stick to 2 or 3 colors. So, for the shards are all allies. So you've got white, blue, black, Esper, blue, black, red, Grixis, black, red, green, you've got Jund, red, green, white, Naya, green, white, blue, Bant. So those are your 5 shards. You've also got 5 wedges. Your 5 wedges are white, black, red, which are also enemy colors. You've got white, black, red, Dagger, red, blue, red, green. Blue, red, green is called Seta. That's Seta with a C. Black, green, white. Black, green, white is Necra. Red, white, blue. Red, white, blue is called Raka. Red, green, blue is called... Which one?
That's Seta.
Oh, sorry.
Red Stana.
Right, sorry. Black, green, blue is Ana, and blue, red, green is Seta. So those are your shards, your wedges, and also your guilds beforehand. Now, onto the guilds.
Color combos. Yeah.
Yep, we're just going to focus on the 2 color combos for now. The 3 color combos are slightly more
complex.
Yeah, they're very complex, so
convoluted.
It's something to look into after you've gotten a feel for Magic. Anyway, so white, blue is Azorius. Azorius aim to control the game through peaceful means. This means they use mass control, counter spells, and minor removal to influence the game. Your next one is Dimir, blue-black. Dimir likes to keep a low profile and hoard and steal information. They generally like to leave your opponent with nothing, and you have all the knowledge. They do this by using evasive creatures and spells, and by manipulating your opponent's deck and hand, and improving your own hand.
Very good for milling, one might
Yes.
want to point out.
So, white-blue Azorius is control to an extreme degree. Blue-black is generally considered mill. The next one is Rakdos, black-red. They're very aggressive. They're very chaotic. And they basically do what they want with little regard for others. So, they're very aggressive. They have access to a lot of removal from both red and black through destruction and burn, and they really do love dealing direct damage. So next one we've got are the Gruul. Now Gruul is very primal. They act in the moment. They are the red-green clan, and they don't hold back. To quote a very specific movie, Detention, I think this is the most apt quote for the Gruul, and I quote, "If your face hurts my fist, I will punch you again harder." That is the best way to describe the Gruul and what they do. Because what they do is they excel mana, they put out big creatures, and then they buff their creatures so they can get past yours. So the next one, and the final ally guild, are Selesnya. Selesnya is the green-white guild. As both colors suggest, they're very selfless, and they act to benefit as many people as they can. So they do this by summoning big efficient creatures, like Tristani, and they spam tokens. They love having an army. They love using their army for tech. And they're basically the hippies of Magic. So, Mr. Burndeck's going to take over for the enemy colours now.
Time for me to have a bit of fun. So, the first enemy colour combo is the Boros, the red and white. Basically, their idea is martial law. It's a lot of low-cost creatures with a lot of combat manipulation. They've got access to both burn and a little bit of recursion as well as life gain. They're generally used to take out their opponent's creatures and have lots of little things. I'm not really sure how I would describe Boros as a game style, because it doesn't fall under any of the major strategies other than beatdown. So I'm just going to move on from that one to Simic, green and blue. So basically, they like to improve their own creatures and spells, and their hand, they excel their mana ridiculously. They buff creatures, give them counters, and benefit them with changes. Say, for example, Mr. Milton, why don't you give an example?
Well, there's Fathom Mage. Every time it gets a +1/+1 counter on it, you get to draw a card. So they like to buff their creatures by giving them counters and benefit from the changes that occurs with their creatures.
There you go. Next one is Orzhov, the white and black. Orzhov are very good at grave recursion. They take things from others. They're a very patient and generally slow form of play, but once they get going, they are very difficult to stop. There's a lot of creature sacrifice, a lot of field destruction, and a lot of stealing from other people's graveyards, and as well as bringing stuff back from their own. Zombies, spirits, that sort of stuff. So, if you're ever playing against an Orzhov player, make sure to get them out of the game quickly, or they'll beat you down pretty damn quickly. The next one is blue and red. So we're looking at Izzet. Izzet, they embrace creativity. They seek to attain knowledge. So they've got massive draw power as well as spell manipulation and control. And the red gives them the ability to burn you pretty harshly, but generally they won't try and do that so much. They will try and control you though, using red for their creature base mostly. Not really much else, as far as I'm aware.
No.
And with that brings us on to the final enemy alliance, or enemy color group, Golgari, which is black and green. They focus on the circle of life, so a lot of grave manipulation of their own deck, and a quick and easy build-up. They won't accelerate their mana as much as other color combos, but that doesn't mean that they can't get a lot of big things out very quickly. They very much like to send things to their graveyard from their deck, and then put it onto the field using other spells. With that, I think that's everything that we've got.
Yep. Just a quick mention, I will be adding links to the description for this video. The links will basically give you access to a more in-depth look into the color combos, mostly the guilds. I will also link a color personality test or two to the description, so that it can help you figure out what guild or color suits you best. And with that, this is Mr. Milton and Mr. Burndeck signing off. We hope you enjoyed this video and have learnt to play Magic a little bit better. Thank you.